people in the U.S. think of Alibaba as being synonymous with Jack, and certainly he's been the face of the company for many years and is the founder, one of the founders of the company. But the reality is, as you mentioned, Daniel Zhang has been running the company since 2015 as CEO. Jack actually stepped down as CEO in 2013. And there's a fantastic management team in place at the company. If I know a lot of your audience may attend the earnings calls that Alibaba puts on, where they're often run by Joe Tsai and Maggie, the company CFO, as well as Daniel. So there's a fantastic team around Jack at the company, and he honestly hasn't been running the company day to day for many years. So I think it's, for the most part, business as usual.
Do you think that this kind of presages more executive shuffling at Alibaba? There's kind of a unique, I guess, team executive approach there. Is this likely to result in, you think, anybody leaving or feeling slighted because they didn't get the CEO seat? How's that going to shake out?
Well, as I mentioned, John, Daniel's been the CEO since 2015, so I don't think there's I don't think folks inside the company would say that there's any big changes afoot. There's also an incredibly strong team of co-founders. There are 18 folks who co-founded the company with Jack, and then you've got a team of over 30 that runs what they call the Alibaba Partnership. So it's a little bit different than the way U.S. companies are structured, where you often have a very strong figurehead as CEO and then folks on the management team that many in the market may not have heard of. At Alibaba, there's a team of folks running the company that are very well known in China and very well respected. And let's not forget, Alibaba's got 86,000 employees. So this is a very large enterprise and over 10 million merchants on the platform and has created over 33 million jobs in China. So this is a very important company in China that is run by a very strong team at the top.
Jeff, the fact that this has apparently been in the works for about a decade now, I mean, it really sheds a contrast to another Chinese tech company, JD.com, which we saw fall in terms of shares last week on that news that its CEO and founder, Richard Liu, had been arrested and then released on rape charges, and specifically the fact that apparently the board of that company can't meet when their founder isn't present. Do you think that this is going to the example of Alibaba is going to encourage more tech companies, be it Chinese or U.S., to adopt these structures with clearer succession plans?
Well, I can't comment on the JD case. We weren't an investor, and I'm not super familiar with the company. But look, I think in general, all of us as investors and shareholders are happier when there's good governance in place. I think Alibaba, frankly, has been a terrific role model for corporate governance, both in China as well as in the U.S. And as you look at the kind of communication that they're carrying out here, to me, it's a best practice. I mean, how many times in the U.S. have we had challenges where a CEO suddenly departs and there is no succession plan? And as you mentioned, this has been going on at Alibaba now for a decade, not only with Jack, but with Joe's involvement with the rest of the team. So I think this is, you know, we often knock Chinese companies for maybe not being as strong on governance as the U.S. companies, but maybe down the road we'll see a Harvard case study on Alibaba as a model for good governance.
Jeff, we're expecting to get a new iPhone announcement in just a couple of days. And at the same time, U.S.-Chinese relations, when it comes to trade and tariffs, not at the greatest point. How do you expect this escalating trade tension to impact not just Apple, but all of the companies that are part of the ecosystem that runs between the U.S. and China? And we just had a wall graphic up showing many of your investments, and a lot of those would count in that number.
Well, you guys have folks on this program who are much more of an expert on global trade than I am, but a couple thoughts. You know, I'm confident it'll get worked out. The U.S. and China are very important to each other, the two largest economies in the world. The second thing that I would emphasize is, you know, over the next decade to 20 years, there's a whole population out there around the world of 7.3 billion people that we care about, Chinese companies care about. We're talking about Southeast Asia, we're talking about India, Latin America, Africa. This is where the next big opportunity is to reach global consumers. They're all coming into the banking ecosystem. They're all adopting mobile phones. You're talking about billions of new users coming into the banking system and the internet. And so I hope, you know, as many of folks in your audience, that we get this figured out, because that opportunity is massive. And I'd love to see U.S. companies have the same opportunity that Chinese companies do to go after that next generation audience, and frankly work together in going after it and bring all of those economies forward at the same pace and have an opportunity for both U.S. and Chinese companies to do so.